Emma Carter stood at the center of the wedding reception, her white dress still perfect, her veil resting gently on her shoulders. The room around her was full of laughter only seconds ago. Glasses were raised. Music filled the air. People were smiling, clapping, celebrating what they believed was the happiest day of her life. Then everything stopped. The music cut off without warning. The sudden silence hit the room like a cold wind. Conversations broke mid-sentence. Forks froze in the air. Someone laughed nervously, thinking it was a mistake. The band looked confused. Guests turned their heads toward the sound table, then back toward the bride and groom. Emma did not look surprised. She slowly reached for the microphone placed near the head table. Her movements were calm, steady, almost gentle. The groom, Daniel, frowned and leaned toward her. "Emma," he whispered. "What's going on?" She did not answer him. Instead, she faced the crowd. Her eyes moved across the room, her parents, Daniel's family, friends who had traveled far, people who had watched her walk down the aisle just an hour earlier. Her lips curved into a small, tight smile, but there was no joy in it. "I just need a moment," Emma said softly into the microphone. The room grew even quieter. Daniel shifted in his seat. His smile faded. A thin line of worry appeared on his forehead. Emma reached into the small purse hanging from her wrist and pulled out her phone. Her hands did not shake. She connected it to the sound system with a simple cable. The screen lit up. She pressed play. At first, there was only a soft crackle. Then a voice filled the room. Daniel's voice. "I never planned for this to come out today," the recording said. "But you deserve to know the truth before we get married." A sharp breath echoed from somewhere in the crowd. Daniel's face drained of color. He stood up so fast his chair fell backward with a loud crash. "Emma, stop," he said, his voice low and desperate. "Please." Emma did not look at him. The recording continued. "I thought I could leave it behind. I thought once we said our vows, it wouldn't matter anymore. But I lied. I lied to you every day." A glass slipped from someone's hand and shattered on the floor. No one moved to clean it up. Whispers spread like fire. Faces turned pale. Eyes widened. Emma's mother covered her mouth. Daniel's sister stared at her brother as if she did not recognize him. Daniel reached for the phone, but Emma stepped back. "You said this was the happiest day of your life," the recording went on. "But there's someone else. And there has been for a long time." The room fell into a heavy, painful silence. No music. No laughter. No celebration. Only the sound of a groom's confession playing through the speakers, and a bride standing still in her wedding dress, finally letting the truth speak for itself. 6 months earlier, Emma Carter believed her life was finally complete. She met Daniel Harris on a rainy evening at a small bookstore cafe near her office. Emma had been standing in line, annoyed and tired after work, when Daniel accidentally spilled his coffee on her coat. He apologized so many times that she laughed instead of getting angry. He offered to buy her a new drink, and they ended up talking for over an hour. From that day on, Daniel became part of her daily life. He was kind, confident, and full of warmth. He remembered small details about Emma, how she liked her tea, which songs made her smile, how she got quiet when she was thinking too much. He listened. He made her feel seen. With Daniel, Emma felt safe. Their relationship moved easily, without drama. They traveled together on weekends, cooked dinners in her small apartment, and talked about the future late into the night. Daniel spoke often about marriage, about building a life together. When he proposed during a sunset walk by the lake, Emma cried and said yes without a single doubt. Everyone around them believed in their love. Emma's parents adored Daniel. Her friends said she had found the perfect man. Even strangers noticed how Daniel held her hand, how he looked at her like she was the only person in the room. There were no warning signs, no loud arguments, no broken trust, at least none that Emma could see. Wedding planning became a joyful blur. Emma chose flowers in soft colors, imagined dancing under warm lights, pictured growing old with the man she loved. She wrote her vows with care, pouring her heart into every word. Daniel helped choose the music and joked about learning to dance better for their first dance. At night, Emma would lie in bed, smiling at the thought of becoming Mrs. Harris. She trusted Daniel completely. She never checked his phone. She never questioned his late work hours. Love, to her, meant belief without fear. The wedding was meant to be perfect because their love felt perfect. Emma believed trust was the strongest part of their relationship. She believed honesty lived between them without effort. She believed that the man who promised her forever had nothing to hide. 6 months ago, Emma Carter had no idea how fragile those beliefs were, or how quickly a perfect story could crack when the truth finally asked to be heard. The morning of the wedding arrived wrapped in soft light and quiet excitement, but Emma Carter felt a strange heaviness in her chest. While the makeup artist worked on her face and her friends laughed around her, Emma kept checking her phone. Daniel's messages were short. Cold. Not like him. When she finally saw him just before noon, her unease grew stronger. Daniel stood in the hallway outside the ceremony room, adjusting his tie again and again. His smile looked forced. His hands would not stay still. When Emma asked if he was okay, he nodded too quickly and said he was just nervous. But Emma knew him too well. His eyes avoided hers. He stepped away to take phone calls and returned looking more shaken each time. The man who once held her hand with confidence now looked like someone carrying a heavy secret. 1 hour before the ceremony, Emma could not ignore the feeling anymore. She asked Daniel to step into a quiet side room. The door closed behind them, leaving only the sound of their breathing. Emma crossed her arms, trying to keep her voice steady. "Talk to me," she said. "Something is wrong." Daniel stayed silent for a long moment. Then his shoulders dropped. He sat down, his face buried in his hands. When he finally looked up, his eyes were wet. "I didn't want this day to come like this," he whispered. Emma felt her heart tighten. Daniel began to speak in broken sentences. He admitted there was someone else. It had started months ago. He said it was a mistake, that he tried to end it, that he thought marriage would make it disappear. Every word felt like a blade cutting deeper into Emma's chest. Without thinking, Emma turned on the voice recorder on her phone. She did not know why. Maybe she needed proof. Maybe she needed strength. Maybe part of her already knew she would need the truth later. Daniel cried. He apologized again and again. He begged her to forgive him, to still marry him, to keep the secret between them. Emma listened in silence. Inside, her world was falling apart. Her dreams, her trust, her future, all of it cracked in that small room. But on the outside, she stayed calm. She wiped her tears, straightened her dress, and looked at the man who had just broken her heart. The ceremony music began to play in the distance. And Emma Carter made a decision that would change everything. After the confession, Emma Carter stood alone in the dressing room, staring at her reflection. Her face looked calm, almost peaceful, but her eyes told a different story. Her hands trembled as she placed them on the table and took a deep breath. She thought about walking away. She imagined leaving the building, tearing off the dress, escaping the pain before anyone noticed. But then she thought about the guests filling the seats, the families who believed in this union, and the lies that would quietly survive if she said nothing. Emma realized something in that moment. If she stayed silent, the truth would disappear. If she spoke now, she would lose everything, but she would keep herself. So she made her choice. Emma walked down the aisle with steady steps. The music played. Guests smiled. Cameras flashed. Daniel watched her with relief in his eyes, believing the storm had passed. When they exchanged vows, Emma's voice did not shake. She said every word clearly, even though each one burned. To Daniel, it looked like forgiveness. To Emma, it was patience. The ceremony ended with applause. People stood and cheered. The newly married couple smiled for photos, and Daniel leaned close, whispering thank yous, believing he had been saved. The reception began like any other. Music played. Glasses clinked. The room glowed with warm lights and celebration. Daniel relaxed for the first time that day. He laughed. He danced. He believed everything was fine. Then Emma stood up. She walked toward the microphone, her heels clicking softly against the floor. The music stopped. Conversations faded. Daniel turned toward her, confused but smiling. Emma connected her phone to the sound system. Before anyone could ask a question, she pressed play. Daniel's voice filled the room, clear and honest in a way he had never been with her. His confession echoed through the speakers. Every lie, every excuse, every painful truth spilled into the open. Gasps filled the room. Faces froze. The celebration shattered in seconds. Daniel rushed toward Emma, panic flooding his face. "Please," he whispered, reaching for her. Emma stepped back. The truth had been spoken. And for the first time that day, justice belonged to her. When the recording ended, the room remained silent. No one clapped. No one spoke. All eyes turned to Emma Carter. She stood still for a moment, then lifted the microphone again. Her voice was calm, steady, and clear. "I didn't play this to hurt anyone," she said. "I played it because the truth deserves to be heard. I was given a choice today, to protect a lie or protect myself. I chose myself." Daniel stood a few steps away from her, frozen. His face showed fear, shame, and regret, but Emma did not look at him anymore. "I loved you," she continued. "I trusted you. But love without honesty is not love. It is a prison. And I refuse to live in one." Some guests lowered their heads. Others wiped their eyes. Emma's mother quietly stood and walked toward her daughter, but Emma gently shook her head and smiled. She needed to finish this alone. Emma placed the microphone back on the stand. Without anger. Without tears. She turned, lifted the edges of her wedding dress, and walked out of the reception hall. No music followed her. Daniel was left standing in the center of the room, surrounded by broken celebration and silent judgment. The man who thought he could hide the truth now had nothing left to say. Weeks later, Emma's life looked very different. The dress was gone. The ring was tucked away in a drawer she rarely opened. She moved into a smaller apartment filled with sunlight and quiet. The mornings were slow. The nights were peaceful. Healing came in small steps, long walks, honest conversations, moments of sadness that slowly lost their power. Emma began to rediscover herself. She learned that strength did not always mean shouting. Sometimes, it meant standing still and letting the truth speak. She learned that walking away was not weakness. It was courage. One evening, as Emma watched the sunset from her balcony, she felt something she had not felt in a long time: freedom. She did not regret what she had done. Because on the day she was supposed to lose herself in marriage, Emma Carter chose something far more important. She chose truth. She chose self-respect. And in doing so, she chose a new beginning.